All right, guys, welcome in. So today's video I'm gonna do on abstract design. I took a course on abstract design with Sinix Design, and it's actually the second time I've taken the course. It was so good the first time, I had to do it again. And I really learned a lot this second time around as well. So, as a way of preserving the knowledge, learning through teaching, and just sharing something that's cool, I'm just gonna do like a walkthrough slash review of the abstract design course and what I learned. I just want to say a big thank you to Sinix. He's an amazing teacher. Please go check out his channel and also his Brainstorm courses, which are I've taken like 5 or 6 of them, I think, and every single one has been really good. So let's jump into it. I have the Procreate file that I used during the class, so I will kind of toggle back and forth from just drawing and painting some things live, and when it gets a little bit too difficult, maybe I'll just pull up one of the homework assignments or practices that I completed in the past. So what is abstract design? Abstract design is all about working with things that are outside of our visual library, things that are non-representational, but for the purposes of this course, this class that I took, we're still thinking about things that exist in 3D space so that we can have things like consistent lighting. So not completely abstract, but abstract in the sense that it's non-representational. When it comes to design, we're talking about making something look appealing, making it look really cool. Now, when I said outside of our visual library is kind of like, let me just draw this really quick. Let's see. So our visual library is kind of like this spectrum, right? And on one side is our soft visual library, and the other side is our hard. And our soft visual library is basically like things that we can recognize, right? So it's composed basically of everything that we've ever seen. Our hard visual library is all about the things that we can recreate. So if you're really good at drawing faces or cars, those things would fall into your hard visual library. And then just things that you can recognize, like, oh, I know what that is. That's going to be in your soft visual library. Your soft visual library, another way to think about this is being able to like see objects in clouds. Like, oh, that cloud, this is an okay cloud. Oh, that cloud kind of looks like, I don't know, a dinosaur. That cloud looks like a car or something along those lines. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about the soft visual library. And that's actually really cool because it's a source of creativity. If we can learn how to tap into our soft visual library, we can kind of make things very creatively and things that can even surprise ourselves. And I think that that's actually, there's a lot of fun in that in general, where you're kind of creating something and you don't even know what it's going to be, but you're kind of relying on this amazing super cute computer that is your mind to kind of inform you as to what you should do next or what this thing is becoming. So, this class was 5 weeks long, and each week we did something new. So for week 1. And what I'll probably do is I'll do a video for each week, because it'll just be too long if I try to put it all into one. But for week 1, we did theory stuff, and that's what we'll talk about today. We'll look at things like the definition of aesthetics. We'll also be looking at intuition and flow states, tempo, shape hierarchy, tension, tangents, and I do want to make a note about draftsmanship too. Week 2, that is about composition and shape appeal. And I'm just going to abbreviate here so I don't spend the entire time trying to write things down. Week 3, up until this point, this has all been line based. And at this point, on week 3, we started to bring in value. So we started doing very basic painting. But that's a really good week, because this is actually the week in the first time I took the class that really kind of got me feeling more comfortable with digital painting. A huge upgrade in my ability to digital paint just from this one class, or this 1 week, I should say. And then week 4, we bring in color. And then week 5, we bring it all together. So, a lot of cool things here. A lot of cool things. So let's start by talking about a few things. So there are a few definitions, some basic things to kind of get out of the way that will help us. And please forgive me if I butcher a word spelling. It probably will happen. If I'm being honest, it'll probably will happen. So the first thing is aesthetics. So what are we talking about when we're talking about something being aesthetically pleasing? We're talking about comfort with regards to the viewer. The viewer feels comfortable with what they're seeing. They can understand what they see. And then there's kind of like this trust that's being built between the viewer and the artist. And so we really want to be aware of this trust. And we'll talk about that a little bit more and what that means a little bit further down in the video. And this is achieved, this confidence that leads to aesthetics is achieved through confidence and intentional choices. One of the things that leads to a sense of confidence is having what Sinix called cursive confidence with your mark making, right? And so we'll talk a little bit about this more when we get to draftsmanship, but basically this idea that if you were a teenager and you were trying to forge your parents' signature, you wouldn't go slow and controlled. You would want to avoid this, because even though you may be more accurate, that is going to not look confident, right? And so when we make our marks fluidly and easily, it makes our whatever we create look more confident. So we want that cursive confidence with our mark making. And that can be really hard because you're afraid. You put a mark down on the page and you're afraid that it's going to not be what you want. That's one of the nice things about digital, is that you can just hit the Control Z or undo. But if you don't have like a digital platform, another way that you can achieve this really easily that I found, and I do this because I work as a teacher, so I'm in a classroom a lot, is if you can get a whiteboard, especially one of those like small whiteboards that you can hold, you can kind of get like a digital feel in the sense that it's very easy to undo things by, just running your finger over a line that you didn't like. I've even caught myself like trying to like double tap a whiteboard before, to, just because it just felt so much like a digital interface. All right, I'm rambling. Okay, so it's all about confidence with your strokes. Okay, so practice that, and I'll talk about when I get to draftsmanship how to make strokes that are a little bit more confident. Um, so make sure I got the right size here. There we go. Okay, so the next thing we want to talk about is intuition and flow. I'll just summarize that as flow, right? And I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of flow states. We're kind of in the zone. If you're an artist, you probably experienced this at least from time to time, where it's just like you can trust your intuition to make a really good choice as to what line to make, what value to choose, what color to choose, etc., etc. Sinix really emphasized that our best art comes when we have an appropriate amount of flow, right? So, one of the ways that we can do that is to titrate, that is, to control the level of focus. Sometimes you can have too much focus, and that can kind of preclude you or keep you from tapping into your intuition. And of course, you can go the other direction as well, like you're just too distracted, and so you can't really get into that flow state. So you just kind of emphasize making sure to find what is best for you. Like, do you need a little music in the background? Do you want it completely silent? Do you like to do it outdoors? Things along those lines. Just things to keep in mind. It's all about trusting yourself to make good decisions. And a lot of times when you're in that flow state, you're going to have a very good tempo. And tempo just refers to the speed at which you're making marks. You don't want it to be all fast and no slow, or all slow and no fast. You want a nice ratio between the two. Usually you want more flowing marks followed by small, more subtle marks. But then there are areas of rest and areas of activity, or chaos, whatever you want to think. But this is really important because there's a certain level of musicality to when you are in the flow and you are producing the right tempo. And if you've done enough drawing, you've probably tapped into it. And I just, in sharing this with you, but I should say Sinix, really wants you to just become more aware of that so that you can tap into it more. And he even mentioned that sometimes when people are like having those days where they can't, like, I can't produce anything, I can't produce anything that's good, like, or my drawings are just crap today, or for whatever. Oftentimes the issue is the tempo, right? And because your tempo's off, you're not in flow, and because you're not in flow and trusting your intuition, you are not making what's the word, confident marks, right? You're not making confident lines, and so that throws off your aesthetic, your aesthetics of what you're trying to produce. So by becoming aware of that and realizing, hey, maybe I'm spending a little bit too much time in this slow, controlled way of mark making, or maybe I'm just too wild with my marks and I'm just all over the place, that maybe I need to find a better ratio for my tempo, and hopefully that gets you back into flow, and then that gets you to produce something that you like, that you find appealing. Okay, so let's see what's next. I'm looking at my notes here, guys, and so that I make sure that I cover everything that I want to cover. So the viewer can tell when you are making these confident flowing lines and you have a nice balance between these flowing energetic lines and these more controlled areas, right? So the next thing that we should talk about are flags. So let me just pull up my eraser and get rid of this. Okay. So flags are things that we just want to watch out for. Okay. So, just like I know it's really popular on the internet to talk about like red flags and green flags in relationships. Like, oh, if this woman is doing this, that's a red flag. If this guy is doing this, that's a red flag, right? Things that you should be aware of to safeguard. In this case, we're not trying to safeguard our romantic hearts, but we are trying to safeguard the quality of the art that we are producing, right? So the first thing is shape hierarchy. And this word hierarchy has come up so many times in the classes that I've taken with Sinix. But for whatever reason, I can never remember how to spell it correctly. So you see on the screen, like I'm looking at my notes and I'm slowly writing the word hierarchy. I feel like if I just look at it long enough, it will stick. But anyway, this is where we get into things like the golden ratio and big, medium, small. And somebody shared on the Discord for the class that the idea of the golden ratio really kind of comes down to the size change that is sufficient enough to make it unambiguously clear that one object is smaller or larger than another object. And so that's kind of where we get big, medium, small. If you take a look at the designs of a lot of characters, right? This is my attempt at Pikachu. Oh, he's kind of scary. I think the eyes need to be lower. Okay, so we have like this Pikachu-like creature, right? Not the best Pikachu, but it's okay. What is his arms like in here? Like those are completely useless. So you'll notice that we kind of have a shape hierarchy here where the body is the big, the head is the medium, and then things like the ears are the small, the hands are the small, the feet are the small. And then if you even go in and you subdivide this and you just look at, like, let's say the head, we have a shape hierarchy there where if the head becomes the big, then the eyes become the small, and so on and so forth. Oh, I forgot his tail. How could I forget the Pikachu tail? Okay. So shape hierarchy is really important, and almost every single recognizable thing, like if I just put Pikachu here in a silhouette, you'd be able to recognize him very easily just from his silhouette. And that's kind of true of all really good designs for characters or environments or vehicles or mechs or whatever. Because they have a very good balance of big, medium, and small. Okay. So that's really important. You want to make sure that the shapes that we're going to make, these abstract shapes, follow a certain hierarchy. Are there big shapes, small shapes, medium shapes? And then are the shapes sufficiently unambiguous to make it clear which one's the big one, which one's the medium one, which ones are the small ones? Okay. The next thing is tension. And tension is basically the same thing, but for negative space, right? Neg space. So if you have let's say, like a canvas or a screen or a piece of paper, whatever, and you have two objects. Let's just make the objects approximately the same size. This area in here. Oh, let me do this. If I put another object in the middle, a smaller object, but it's like right in the middle, we have a very balanced negative space, and we tend to not really like that as viewers, and as artists. We want there to be kind of an obvious, like, okay, this smaller shape belongs with this shape off to the right, right? We don't want there to be ambiguity. We also don't want this shape to be, this smaller shape to be so close that it kind of merges with the other shape. We still want it to have its own individuality. And this is more appealing in terms of negative space. So like all of this in here would be our negative space, right? That's more appealing than it being in the center or being so much on one side that it doesn't individuate itself or differentiate itself, right? So, yeah. So just think about tension as shape hierarchy in negative space. We want to be aware of not just the things, the objects that we're drawing, but the spaces in between them. Okay, so the next one, we talked about tension, are tangents. And let me just clear this for the tangents. I should say that even though this was in a class that Sinix offered, almost everything that he shares is freely available on his YouTube channel. You kind of have to dig through a lot of his stuff, and I would even recommend looking at some of his older things because he kind of talks about some of these topics in depth in some of his older videos, in his newer videos too, but it's all there. And so, yeah, another big shout out to Sinix. It's appreciated that he provided all this information for free. Okay, so tangents are undesirable interactions between shapes and lines, including the canvas itself. So, what it can do is it creates unplanned tension, and it can combine shapes, creating a confusion and a loss of trust. Remember that trust thing that we talked about before between the viewer and the artist, and it flattens depth. So it creates ambiguity. So let me give you an example. Let's say I have my piece of paper or my canvas, and then I have this square shape, right? And then I want to put, let's say, a triangle shape right next to it. If I do this and my triangle's edge lines up, it makes it a little bit hard to determine which object, are they right next to each other? Is one behind the other one? Yeah, this is just not what we like. It makes it so much better if we simply have a little bit of overlap, right? Now it's obvious that the square is in front of the triangle. So that's an example of a tangent. And there are a few different types to be aware of. So there is a kissing tangent, and this is when, let's say, we have, again, a square and a triangle, and the triangle's apex or point is just touching the can't speak, is just touching the square. It doesn't have to be squares and triangles. It could be like a blob shape, but then we have another blob shape that's like very close. That can flatten the image. So that's a kissing tangent. And then a share tangent is like the one that I showed you earlier, where you're like sharing a line, right? This one's sharing two lines right here and right here, right? Then we have, so watch out for that. Then we have a continuation tangent. So if I just use this one again, and then the idea is like, okay, this line, if I continued it, and then it met up with, let's say, a triangle over here, and let's say, let me get rid of, oops, I'm using my handy 8-bit do. I always want to call these the 8-bit do. I feel like that just sounds better, but it's an 8-bit do, and it's like a little game controller. I'm gonna do a video on this, but it's a little game controller pad. It fits in your hand, and you can program it as a keyboard, so you can do keyboard shortcuts, and that's really important because if you can see on my screen, I can very quickly change the brush size. And this is something that Sinix says is like really, really valuable. He talked about this in the third week. It helps to avoid a digital appearance, a more natural, excuse me, a more natural appearance with what's the word I'm looking for, with your strokes, for your stroke economy, in terms of not everything looking the same. I'll get to that later. Don't worry about it. But anyway, this is a continuation tangent because if I were to continue this line, it lines up perfectly, and our brain will like pick that out. If there'll be an image, and if something lines up perfectly, our brain will just like just focus on it. So we don't want to create these unintentional focuses, things that are going to distract people from the viewing experience. So that's a continuation tangent. And then this is a mirroring tangent. And he said, so like, let's say we have, take our canvas again, okay? And let's say we have a beautiful image. There's like rolling hills, and on this hill, there's a castle, beautiful castle where princess lives, waiting for love, maybe, kind of, something. So we have this castle. This is a really bad castle, but you get the idea. And let's say we want to add some clouds. Very often people will have the clouds mirror the castle, right? And so that's a mirroring tangent. And it can be very difficult to avoid this unless you're aware of it. So knowing that people do that, maybe I want to... Oops, that doesn't look like a cloud. What are those clouds when they like go up in the air? Cumulonimbus or something like that? Maybe I want something like this, and I want my cloud more like that, where it's not mirroring. That wasn't a really good job, but you kind of get the idea. You don't want to mirror elements in your image unless you're intending to do that for a very specific reason, right? So we just want to be aware of these things. It's not like you can never have a tangent, or there's like no purpose for having tangents, but you just need to be aware of it so that it actually aligns with what your intention is. Okay, so those are tangents, and those are our flags. Those are things that we need to be aware of. Not really a flag, but still something to be aware of is our draftsmanship. So this is all about how you make your marks. And let me tell you guys, this is pretty huge. If you're new and you're like, I want to draw a face, and you go like, okay, here's my face, right? And here's my eye, and all your lines are like really scratchy. This tells the viewer, I am not confident in what I'm doing, okay? And it's not as aesthetically pleasing. Now, with digital painting and digital art, you can sometimes get away with this because you're going to go back over and you're going to clean it up. But in general, things look so much better. All the way back. Things look so much better when you can just throw a line and have some confidence that the marks you're making that wasn't a good mouth is gonna work, right? Like you just have confidence in your ability to make marks. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but even if what you're drawing isn't like technically correct, like you're trying to do anatomy, but it's not like quite right. If you draw with confidence, people won't know. People don't know. Most artists don't. I just shouldn't say most, but a lot of artists don't even know their anatomy. So why would the lay viewer know, right? And this goes for a lot of things, like the details in a mech or in a car. If you draw with confidence, it's kind of like a fake it till you make it type of thing, where you can get away with a lot. So how do you draw with confidence? You want to get away from drawing from the wrist. So the wrist is a no-no, right? That's just like wrist X. Let me do it like this. No wrist, okay? We want to draw primarily from our shoulder. I don't know why I'm writing this down. Did I spell shoulder wrong? I think I did. Yeah, it's ER. My goodness. Spell check has ruined me. So you want to draw primarily from your shoulder, and lock your wrist. And sometimes you're going to draw with your fingers, meaning you're going to do small details with your fingers. But honestly, it's mostly from the wrist, and that really helps. Let me just back this up a little bit so I can show you what I'm talking about. That really helps getting these like smooth, energetic, confident lines. This is what you want. You want to get away from, I don't know what I'm doing. And even some artists, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are artists who can pull it off, who make it happen, make it work. But you want to get away from that in general, and you want to just focus on smooth, controlled lines. Okay. Let's see. Practice your CSI. So curved lines, C curves, S curves, and straights. That's your CSI. This is kind of like the alphabet of draftsmanship or of mark making. Because, and I found this really helpful to think about, is just if you can basically understand, when I'm trying to make something, I just need to have a curve, an S curve, or a straight line, and I'm going to just choose from one of these three to make my mark. It kind of takes away some of the processing labor in trying to decide which mark I'm going to make. If I know I only really have kind of like three-ish options, it kind of is like if I'm drawing, I don't know, like if I'm drawing like a muscle or something, and I'm like, what line should I put here? What line should that be? Well, it's like, is it going to be a C curve, an S curve, or an I? I think I'll throw an I here. Maybe I'll throw another I here. So it takes a little bit of, you have to be a little bit more conscious of your mark making in the beginning, but man, oh man, does it make things a lot easier. Sometimes when you're in a drawing and you get to a certain point, you're like, I don't know quite how to make this limb look like it's foreshortening or something, and you just kind of have to go back to, okay, maybe I'll throw a C curve in there, and maybe another C curve for the shoulder, and then I'll throw in this C curve. Honestly, it's a lot of C curves. S curves do come into play, but usually with the S curves, it's not really like a full-blown like S curve, right? It's more like a C curve with a little bit of a with a little bit of a tail, right? So let me just finish this guy off here. Like, oh yeah, stop, halt. You must not go any further. Um, can you guys tell I'm having a little bit of fun with this? So C, S, and I, if you like, when I figured out how to break it down into those things, my art immediately got better, immediately got cooler to look at. Now, I will say one thing with the C curves that's really important, and this applies to the S curves as well, is that we've been trained since birth, or I shouldn't say since birth, since early schooling, we've been trained to make our marks so that when we make curve marks, they're even, right? And the apex of a curve occurs right in the center. This is bad for art. Bad. Don't do this. Don't do that, right? We want our curves weighted, right? So our apex is off center. That's what we want, especially for drawing something organic. We want these off center curves. So let's say like I'm drawing something, and we'll talk about this I think a little bit more next week when we talk about shape appeal. But if I draw something like this, everything's really lined up, right? Let's see. Everything's lined up. The apexes are right in the center. It looks weak, right? And if you saw somebody's leg or something like it in the future, you're just thinking like, I could just ha-cha kick this leg, and this would snap, right? This would snap out. It's weak, right? Because we have these pinch points. So I'm chuckling at my little leg here. So really what we want is these weighted, that wasn't a very good weighted curve. Weighted curves that offset each other, right? And that way our pinch points are kind of offset. This one wasn't super offset, but we kind of want this fluid back and forth type of thing with weighted curves. And these aren't perfectly weighted, but you kind of get the idea, right? This one's a little bit more weighted. Again, when you're going to go make a mark and you can just say, I need a weighted curve here, it's like, okay, do I weight it more towards the beginning of the mark, or do I weight it more towards the end of the mark? And it makes the cognitive processing a lot easier. It really does. So give that a try. So that was draftsmanship. So those are the things. So that's the main lesson of the class. The last thing that we talked about is how to practice these things. So I'm going to go over this quickly because I feel like this video is getting very long, but that's okay. I had planned out, and I guess I could show you this. I had like planned out this video, and I had like slides and definitions and all this stuff. But then I was thinking like, this is so much work, and I'm not a YouTube video making guy. I just want to like get on here, share some cool stuff, and have a back and forward with people who are interested in that. And I also felt like, if you want that level of detail, take the class. Take the class. I don't want to undermine Sinix's, I don't want to mess with his bag, right? Take the class. It's worth it. If you can scrape together the cash, take the class. It's so good. Okay. So how do we practice these things? Well, the first thing is at analyzing patterns. We want to see if we are doing the same pattern over and over again. We may think that doing things random would be easy as an artist, but it's actually quite difficult. We have natural patterns. So we could start with very basic shapes like squares, triangles, and circles. And all we're going to do is create a little composition, a little arrangement of big, medium, small, and And we're just trying to do 3 big, medium, small of that shape, right? And then we're going to analyze it. So let me do a couple here. I'll do one square, one triangle. And triangles are like the hardest because of the angles and things along those lines. And I'll do one circle. Circle is probably the easiest. Squares are in the middle. And then, of course, let's see, what do I want for this last? Oops, that's not a very good one. Okay. So let's say that these are my shape patterns that I'm going to analyze. And actually do this, like grab like a brighter color, and then we're going to go in here and we're going to look for our big, medium, small. That's our shape hierarchy, right? We're going to look for our tension, which is our negative shape hierarchy, and then we're going to look for tangents. That's what we're looking for. And I just threw these shapes down. And you should kind of do it that way too. Don't think about big, medium, small tensions and tangents too much. The whole point is to just throw down some shapes and then analyze to see what patterns you do. You don't have to spend, a bunch of time on this. But right off the bat, I'm seeing right here, I'm seeing a continuation tangent. Between this part and this part, I'm seeing, would that be a continuation tangent? I guess it would be a continuation tangent as well. I'd also say that, let's see, the negative space, it has a bit of hierarchy where like this part is smaller than this part, right? Let me back this up so it doesn't get too confusing. This area here is smaller than this area here. So that's pretty good. See what else? I've got my big, medium, small, but I would say that from my medium to my small, those shapes could be a little bit further apart in size. And the same thing for my medium and my big. I could have exaggerated that a little bit more. So that's what you want to do. You want to go through and analyze. Let's look at the triangles. Let's see. So this right here is this line right here on this side of the triangle and this edge of the triangle, they line up perfectly, right? So this side is parallel with that side. Not horrible, but something to be aware of. Maybe you can make an argument that there's a continuation tangent right there, that it goes directly down from that spot. Things along those lines. These two shapes, which one's the big, which one's the medium, right? It's obvious that this one's the small, but these two are kind of ambiguous. Same thing for this one over here. Please ignore the horribly shaped. That is supposed to be a circle. It's not supposed to be a blob or oval, but it's supposed to be a circle. Anyway, this one, let's see. What am I seeing here? Well, if I continue this line here, you don't kind of want to evenly split a shape, but this one's not so evenly split. That's not too bad. What else am I seeing? Another thing that's really helpful that we did in the class is that we would share these and ask other people to look for flags. Oftentimes you can't see, or you won't see your own flag. So, or you won't see something that is a flag. You may catch a few, but miss some. And so you can always ask people, like, explain the big, medium, and small, the tension and the tangents to them. Say, hey, look at this assortment of shapes. Do you see anything that could be more aesthetically pleasing if I didn't, if I had the right shape hierarchy and negative shape hierarchy and didn't have any tangents? So that's one thing that you can do for practice. It's called pattern analysis. I don't know if that's exactly what he would call it, but let's look at let's finish up this video. So the next thing that you can do is called shape rhythm. And so we're going to do the same thing where we're looking for the big, medium, small. We're looking for, let's see, big, medium, small, the shape hierarchy, the tension, and the tangents, but this time we're going to look at things that have to do with flow and rhythm. Now, this isn't like the flow that you get into, like the mind state flow. This is more like how shapes work together. So, rhythm is, you have all these things, and maybe they are kind of all going in the same direction. That's rhythm. Whereas flow would be more like they've kind of lost their individuality, right? They're obviously all kind of working together. Um, the example that he used is if you're trying to draw a foot, right? Like if you try to draw a foot, maybe it's like, there's my foot. Oh, that's a big heel, but you get the idea. There's my foot, right? Now, if we were trying to talk about flow where these individual parts of the foot lose their individuality, we may just do something like this, and we'll just have like an outcropping here and an outcropping here, and it's like a toe or a foot standing on its tippy toe, right? And so these elements have started to lose some of their individuality. So with this exercise, what we're going to do is, let me see here. With this exercise, you're going to create a C or an S curve, and you're going to practice making your shapes, either circles, squares, triangles. If you want to get adventurous, you can make blobs or something, tetrahedrons. And we're trying to work on our big, medium, small. We're looking at our tension. I can already see that I'm very evenly balancing some of these things. And we're looking for tangents, but we are working along this curved, flowy line, right? And again, we're just going to go in and we're going to analyze. Do these things seem cohesive? Is there rhythm, which would be totality with individuality, or is there flow, totality without individuality? And we are, again, making sure that we are accounting for big, medium, and small. These can get very chaotic very quickly. Just think of this as a more difficult version of the pattern analysis. But it's a good practice. A little bit more difficult, but it's a good practice. The last practice there is butterflies. I'm just going to grab this color here. Now, butterflies are all about making 3 organic, triangular, curved, energetic shapes that kind of have at least one apex together, and as such, they look kind of like a butterfly. And so this is really good for practicing your draftsmanship and weighted curve control. Remember, you want your curves weighted. That is the apex off the center. Again, we're going to focus on big, medium, small. There's going to be 3 shapes. So big, medium, small, and then the curve weight. So they could be something like this. Okay. Here's my big, here's my medium, and my small, right? And we're just going to practice. I found that it's kind of easy to make the curve if the apex is early on as opposed to later on. Does that make sense? Like if the apex is, I'm going to draw it slowly how you're not really supposed to do it, just so I can accurately draw what I'm talking about. I found that it's easier to go like this than it is to go like that. Okay? But that just tells me, hey, try that, like work on it. Like that was my attempt. That's how bad I am at it. Okay? So these are butterflies, and they're good to practice. Okay. Give those a try. They are all for improving your draftsmanship, your big, medium, small, your curve weight, all that good stuff. The last thing, this is the actual assignment. I wonder how long this video is. It's like 30-45 minute video. The last thing is we're putting it all together with automatic drawing. If you're unfamiliar with automatic drawing, just give it a quick like YouTube search, and there's some good videos on the topic. I can even, when I post this video, I'll post a link. But what we're just focusing on is making those smooth, energetic shapes with a good tempo, and then coming in here a little bit slower with a slower tempo. And I don't think that I'll try to make one on the fly here. I think I'll just show you some of the automatic drawings that I did. So let me close this one out. So here's one. We're just using line to describe the form. This one's okay. You know, if I went in and analyzed this, I could probably find quite a few things that are flags, things that I didn't do quite correctly, but that's okay. Here's another one. Again, we're just working with abstract blobs. We're defining form with line. And then at the end of this first week, I also did this one. So these are okay. There are people in the class that did really amazing stuff. And I think mine are all right. I really like abstract drawing, though, I should say, because if I don't know what to draw, which is often the case, I can just start throwing down some shapes and seeing what I see. And what's the cool thing about abstract drawing, or I should say automatic drawing, is that when you've done it really well and you don't have any glaring patterns, it is very easy for your soft visual library to get activated, and then you will start to see things in what you have created. And it's very easy to take an automatic drawing and turn it into, you know, an alien landscape or an alien creature or a monster or anything along those lines, interesting costuming. And so oftentimes some of the coolest and funnest things that I produce come from these automatic drawings. So give this a try with your automatic drawings. You want to use your intuition, react to the appealing organic shapes that you're creating. We'll talk about making shapes more appealing in the next video. But then also focus on your flags, your big, medium, small, your shape hierarchy, your tangents, your negative space hierarchy or tension. And then this is an excellent time to practice your draftsmanship. This is a very low risk way of drawing and improving your art, because you're not trying to make anything specifically. You're just trying to play with shape and form to make something that looks kind of cool. And when you take that pressure off, you'd be surprised how much creativity can start to pour out of you. I think a lot of people have that perfectionist mindset, and it kind of makes them freeze up when they try to engage in creative endeavors. So give this a try. If you like this, let me know. I can do this for the remainder of the classes or the weeks for this abstract design. I could also do this for some of the other classes that I took with Sinix. He's got a thumbnailing class coming up in October that I plan to do. And so if you guys find this stuff useful, I'm more than happy to continue to produce it. It's just really cool stuff. It's amazing. I like sharing. I like teaching this stuff. It helps me to learn it more. So if you like it, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video.